What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Nerd Enthusiast Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Chris Francesco. Now, normally, Kyle Barone, my co-host for all of these, is with me. However, since this is a wrestling podcast, the old adage goes in the wrestling businesses, when you have to have a replacement on the card, because, you know, card is always subject to change, you have to give the audience either equal or better value. So because I love Barone, I'm not going to say it's better value, but I am going to say equal value. And it's a very clutch acceptance here from my good buddy, also a podcast legend in his own right, Mr. George Rogers. What's up, man?
What's going on, Chris?
I'm doing good, dude. Thank you so much for this late notice. It seems like every time we want to talk wrestling on a podcast, it's like hey, 2 hours ago, I text, hey, you want to jump on and do a wrestling podcast? And thank God, thank God you're able to do this. But yeah, this is going to be good stuff here. So in January, Barone and I said we're going to do some Royal Rumbles, and we did. We did the 97, and we got to the 2001, and then we're going to wrap things up here with the Rumbles. 2004 and 2015 will be next week, and the reason why we picked those two Rumbles is because myself, I was at the 2004 Rumble, and Kyle was at the 2015 Royal Rumble, which we will cover next week. But the great thing about getting George on, and I didn't know this until I texted him about it about 3 hours ago. I said, hey, you know anything about the 2004 Royal Rumble? And he goes, yes, because I was there. So this makes everything much better discussing things. So this was January 25th, 2004. This was inside the Wachovia Center, now the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. George, this pay-per-view did pretty damn good in terms of buys with just over 500,000, which was second only to WrestleMania 20 of inside Madison Square Garden that year. So 2004, George, your opinion. To me, this was my favorite era of wrestling, which is right in the middle, not even in the middle, but I guess you could say the first couple years of the aggression, the ruthless aggression era. Your thoughts on this era of wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely one of the, looking back about it, I'd always say like the Attitude Era, but the more I look at it, Attitude Era did have better like stars and better characters. But Ruthless Aggression, the matches were just so much better. Like they upped the ante right up to 10. It was definitely around the start of the Ruthless Aggression in 2004. Because yes, Cena wasn't even a big name yet. He was still like an upper mid carder at that point.
Yeah, he was only at that Mania. He won, I think, the U.S. title for the first time. So yeah, he was just on that. No. Wait, did he win the? No. Yeah, the U.S. title off the Big Show at Mania 20. So yeah, he was on that cusp of becoming great. Yeah, I agree with you, man. The Attitude Era is what brought wrestling back. I will say the reason why I always look at the Ruthless Aggression Era, one, I agree with you. I love what happens inside the 20 by 20 squared circle. But when you look at the array of talent, and during the WrestleMania series that's coming up that we're going to be doing, Barone and I think the greatest WrestleMania ever from top to bottom is WrestleMania 19 from 2003 at Safeco Field in Seattle. When you look at this 2004, the roster, man, is absolutely stacked to the gills. And you still have Taker, Kane, Angle, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Brock Lesnar, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, Edge, Christian, the Hardy Boys. It's Rey Mysterio, man, from top to bottom, George, and literally the greatest assemble of pro wrestlers and legends and the history of the business was in this time period.
Oh, I completely agree. Completely agree. Because even though Taker had been, he was around, he was the older guy, but he was still doling out great matches. Same thing with Kane. And Kane just went through that resurgence where he lost his mask, 7 months prior to this Rumble?
Yes.
He went through kind of a, I don't want to say, I guess a gimmick change to a point. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was still Kane, but there was this darker, more sinister approach to him because without the mask, I know when he took the mask off, people were joking like, oh, there's no scars. And then the next week, like, oh, he just thinks he's scarred. And when you think about it, you're like, that's like some real horror movie level storytelling that they were doing with him, because only a real psychopath is going to think he has scars when he doesn't, which is going to drive him nuts. Of course, I'm going too much on Kane, but yeah, that crap, because you had Edge and Christian who had broken off by that point, so they were rising as single stars in their own right. Edge was solidifying himself as a mid card player, slowly working his way up to the upper card, or to the main event level, I should say. Randy Orton, Batista just starting out in their essential not rookie season, but like the rookie start of their career with Evolution. Flair, who was at the end of his career, but still very effective in his matches.
Oh, for sure.
Michaels had just came back like not even a year and a half prior. So
right, and then and we'll get into the Michaels Triple H match, because I mean it's one of my favorite matches ever. One, I mean, it has special effect to me because I was there. So I mean, you look at the talent. Let's just start things off with this pay-per-view. Like, you just think of the talent. The first match, man, the curtain jerker of the night is Ric Flair and Batista versus the Dudley Boys. Like, it's literally 4 Hall of Famers right in the ring just to start the evening. It's unbelievable. I even with the names of this match, it was not a good one. I don't know what you recall, but I gave it half a star. I thought it was weak. It was not much of a match. It seemed very rushed, and usually a lot of times during the Royal Rumble, you feel like certain matches are rushed because they're going to spend over an hour normally just on the Rumble match itself, especially on this night. But that's okay, since this was like probably the least hyped show match on the show. It was designed, realistically, it was designed to put Batista over as a threat. So, which it did. But before we go any further, I wanted to say this before we got into that first match. And George brought up a great point on a text that this is like the most, aforementioned pay-per-view in WWE history, because, Chris Benoit was number 1 and went all the way through over 60 minutes, one of the greatest Rumble performances ever. And obviously, we're not here to condone the last, 24 to 72 hours of Chris Benoit's life. The guy shouldn't be celebrated, but you can't erase history. You can't forget that bell to bell, man, Chris Benoit is top 5 of the greatest technical wrestlers that ever lace up boots in the wrestling business. So,
hands down.
And the fact that they just completely glossed over the fact that this event actually occurred. It's crazy when you look back now and watch, according to WWE, the Big Show just threw himself over the ropes and nobody won the Rumble. So, it's wild to remember this pay-per-view, and WWE has basically deleted it from its history, but we are going to talk about it tonight. So, your thoughts? I mean, your thoughts on this? You were there, I was there. It was an incredible evening. The Rumble match was great. The winner, the man who won should have won. What was your thoughts? One on Benoit's push here, and overall the storylines heading towards Mania.
I thought Benoit's push at this point was extremely well deserved, considering the way he went out in WCW, where he was clearly unhappy with everything that was going on in WCW. They threw the belt on him at Sold Out in 2000 just to take it off like the next night, because I knew he was leaving. But it's like, what did they think putting the belt on was going to do? He was just going to stop, like, all right, I'll stay here in this company that isn't putting anybody over except the older guys. And then to see him come to WWE and kind of not really start from the bottom, but like he was immediately thrust right into the mid card, and then see him have like that gradual rise, and fighting against Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman's like, you're going to be number 1 in the Rumble. As soon as he said that, I was like, I think Benoit's going to go all the way. And I was surprised that with the lead up to WrestleMania, that they did put the belt on him. That did shock me.
Yeah, the story was, and I don't know if you listen to Bruce Pritchard's podcast at all, Something to Wrestle with Conrad. It's my favorite, outside of the Multiverse Movie Podcast, Sensation 007, Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard's my favorite podcast out there. And he said from the get-go that the reason why Benoit was in that spot was because, Shawn Michaels and Triple H were the ones that told Vince, like, this is the guy. Like, if you're going to get this guy over, he's earned it after this much time being just an incredible worker. And right now he's just incredibly over with his work. Shawn Michaels and Triple H are the guys who said, look, if you're going to get him over, you got to have him beat us. And, on that way to Mania, man, the matches that Hunter was having with Michaels and, that Michaels was having with Benoit, it was just masterfully done. And I just thought, whatever the ideas that Michaels and Hunter had to get Benoit over, it worked. And, for a guy that can't talk on the mic, he could not talk. He had no charisma, and he being Benoit, George, did they in your eyes set him up perfectly to make him a believable champion?
Oh yeah, have him going into WrestleMania in a triple threat against Triple H, who is you could call the biggest star of that era, with Shawn Michaels, who is still the biggest star from the new generation era.
Yeah,
who just came back from what we all thought was a career-ending injury.
Yeah.
So to have him go over them at WrestleMania, I thought was perfectly done. But just like with anything else, every time they put the belt on a deserving wrestler, right afterwards, there's really just kind of bland storylines and just kind of throwaway matches.
Yeah.
To lead up to the big four, which is actually why I'm surprised that they took the belt off him that early at SummerSlam.
Yeah, I agree. That was still a time, in 2004, George, where, the titles actually kind of still meant something. It wasn't a prop like it is now. So yeah, I agree with you. I guess at that point, so what was that? Who Orton beat him at SummerSlam, correct?
Yes.
If
you go by WWE's history, Orton found the belt after it went missing at WrestleMania 20.
That's correct. That's funny. But you look back and you're like, I guess their thought was Evolution got so much pub and Orton was literally had the rocket strapped to his ass for like 3 or 4 months at that point. I guess they thought, man, let's strap it on this 24-year-old kid that's, literally just spent the last year and a half being groomed by Hunter and Ric Flair. So let's see what we got here. And partially, I think it was, Hunter saying, I need new blood to go after, which makes sense. I don't care how much heat Triple H gets. Like you said it perfectly, George, that at this time, Triple H was the guy in the company. He was the top heel, one of the best heels of all time, a great champion. He just went through a program with Benoit. That was done. There's only so much program you can do where the one guy is an incredible, charismatic heel in Triple H. There's only 15 matches you can have with Chris Benoit, who can't battle you back on the mic. He has to do his talking in the ring. I guess once you get to SummerSlam, it's Triple H saying, maybe it's time for some new blood in here for me to chase. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, and so let's go to the next match here, which was Rey Mysterio versus Jamie Noble. This is a main event anywhere in the world. This is I give this a 1 star. To me, it was a quick match to put over Mysterio while also showing the problems with Noble and Nidia, since she was blind, because they were the kind of fun things we were doing in 2004.
Awful.
To me, it was more of an angle to put over Nidia's blind status, and her mistake cost Noble the match. So yeah, that was a little 1 star match. I wasn't a fan. I mean, anytime you got to see Rey Mysterio, you automatically get a star. But outside of that, I just couldn't do it. The next one was, I'll tell you what, maybe with a little bit more build up, this could have been a lot better. Eddie Guerrero versus Chavo Guerrero was next. I thought it was pretty good for the time given. And like I said, it could have been better because I just think it was rushed. I wish it went at least maybe 5 to 8 minutes longer. I understand they need a lot of time for the other matches and the Rumble. That's why they couldn't have stretched this out maybe to the next pay-per-view, because Eddie was set to win the title. It it was a strong win for Eddie. That's what he needed. I understand that decision because it put him over in a big way. I just really wanted this to be more than it was, George, because if Chavo's last name wasn't Guerrero, I think he would have been a big star because one, he had a lot of charisma. He could talk on the mic, and damn, he's a Guerrero. And obviously he could flat out go in the ring.
Yep.
I think if Chavo was in his prime in today's WWE, he'd be a top star.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, anytime you have Eddie and Chavo together in the ring, you're basically, I don't want to say you're getting magic, but no two guys knew each other better in the ring and could give you a solid match, a solid flawless match.
Right.
I mean, they trained together, and they were what, only a few years apart in age because Eddie was the youngest Guerrero.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the next match we have, probably, I mean, not probably, it was the absolute piss match of the night. I remember, I mean, I'm sure you remember, this was literally booed from start to finish.
Yeah.
WWE Championship match, Brock Lesnar versus Hardcore Holly. I mean, I think I gave this a star and a half. Yeah, I have it right here. It was so boring it had a decent finish. Obviously, it was a short match to put over Lesnar in a big way. The crowd was dead for everything. When Holly breathed out oxygen, they were like, "Oh, this is boring." I think the Bob Holly experiment by this point was completely over. Lesnar, I mean, in 2004, he was still a mutant, so he was just Brock Lesnar. Nobody watching this thought that Holly could win the match. I mean, when
not a single person.
Yeah, I was gonna go to you just now and be like, dude, this is 17 years ago. We just crossed 16? Yeah, 17 years ago, man. If you remember back, did you have any thought that, wow, maybe we could see an upset here?
Not a single thought. There was no way in hell. First off, Royal Rumble is the literal start to the road to WrestleMania.
Right.
They're not going to throw the belt on Hardcore Holly going into WrestleMania.
It's funny just hearing that sentence, belt on Hardcore Holly.
World Heavyweight Champion Bob Holly. Get out of here.
Just put it on old Sparkplug.
I don't want to take anything away from Bob Holly because the setup for that, the promos, he was cutting good promos from a guy that you never really heard on the mic.
Right.
Like whenever he talked on the mic, all I can think about is, and I'll see if you remember this. It was Royal. I think it was like Royal Rumble '95, where it was Bob Holly and the 1-2-3 Kid going for the tag team titles.
Yep.
And he cut that promo. It was like, oh, the San Diego Chargers are getting their shot at the championship, and we're going to get ours. And looking back on now, it's like you backed the wrong team to mention.
Yeah. They only lost by about 30 points to the 49ers.
Yeah.
It was so funny. I don't think Holly should have ever received this WWE title match just because Lesnar hurt his neck in September in 2002, which was a nasty, nasty injury, by the way.
Yeah.
The fans just, like you said, like I just said, I mean, we just never saw Holly as a big enough star, and that's why the fans just reacted, had zero reaction to him. Like they didn't even have enough reaction for Holly to boo. Like there was just it just wasn't worth it. Holly was honestly just there for someone that Lesnar could just throw around and beat up. That's really what it was.
That should have been like a one of the off pay-per-views. Like they should have made that December's pay-per-view. Like,
I agree.
Don't put that on one of your marquee events.
Right.
But I mean, it's a Royal Rumble, so they're not selling the title matches; they're selling the Rumble match.
So right. At that point, I wouldn't even had Brock on the show, except maybe doing that later on when he does the video, face to face with Goldberg. I mean, if you're gonna throw a Bob Holly out there to Brock, I wouldn't even put Brock on the show. I mean, to be honest. But looking back at that point, that's they did whatever it could to get anybody on shows. So we go backstage, and this is where the pay-per-view really starts to get hot and heavy. Triple H is shown getting ready. They show Shawn Michaels praying. a video package aired to set up Triple H for Shawn Michaels for the world title. It showed their good times together in DX, followed by Triple H turning heel on him, setting up their classic SummerSlam 2002 match, which we will be covering in long form during this summer. It is my absolute favorite pay-per-view of all time. They had an incredible world title match on Raw in December 2003. Also, probably my favorite singles match on Raw of all time. I like the rivalry a lot because they were just, obviously we know the history and the absolute perfect chemistry that these guys had. And I'll say this: I think from 2002, when Michaels came back to the summer of 2004. I truly, and look, I'm a mark for Shawn Michaels. People know this. I'm an absolute mark, but I'm also very honest about, either his first run or his second run and, things I liked or didn't like. I think it's one of the greatest rivalries of all time, and it does not get talked about enough. That rivalry between Michaels and Triple H from 2002 to the middle of 2004. It was absolute. Every time they touched, it was unbelievable.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and then you go, you start with the SummerSlam match, the comeback match. The guy hasn't wrestled in 5 years and has a 45-minute clinic with Triple H. Then they had in October, or no, I'm sorry, November, the Elimination Chamber. Then New Year's resolution. What's a 3 stages of hell where Triple H gets the title back. Then you go, like I said, that end of 2003 in San Antonio at Raw with Michaels damn near winning the world title. Then you go to the Rumble. Then you go to the setup for probably the greatest, honestly, one of the best main events in WrestleMania history with that triple threat match with Benoit and Michaels and Triple H. And then they have that incredible Hell in a Cell match in July, which to this day, I think is the longest Hell in a Cell match. It went just over 45 minutes. So this match right here, man, is just right smack dab in the middle of a tremendous rivalry. I know you're a big Michaels fan as well. What was your thoughts on this rivalry at this time? Again, I'll say this to Dean, that bastard. I'll say this. I think that second run by Shawn Michaels was better than his first because that guy took 5 years off. And JR said this a couple weeks ago on his podcast. He comes back in 2002, and from 2002 to 2010, he was the best guy they had on that roster. And like that, what were your thoughts on at this point, Shawn Michaels, and then this rivalry leading up to the match?
I mean, I've always been a Michaels guy. When he came back in 2002, as a member of the NWO when they tried that failed experiment,
right?
And they broke that up, and then then him and Triple H, it looked like they were going to get DX back together. And of course, I was freaking out over that
for sure.
And then Triple H with the turn, which was perfect for him.
It was incredible.
Point.
Yeah,
it was because it was at a time when we didn't expect the heel turn.
Right.
Nowadays, you look at it and you're like, something's going to go on here.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
But it came completely out of nowhere because we had the internet, but it wasn't like we didn't have social media and everything, so you didn't have to worry about spoilers popping up left, right, sideways.
Yeah,
like you were still at a time where you could be surprised.
Right.
And it definitely surprised me and my buddy I was watching with at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And Michaels and Triple H, overall, definitely one of the top 5 greatest wrestling rivalries.
Mm-hmm. Glad you said that.
And that's saying something when you look at the entire span of pro wrestling up till now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's no slight to. I mean, it's no slight to any of the other legends who have had some long-standing rivalries, but there was every match that Michaels and Triple H had. It always felt like there was something on the line, even if it's just a regular one-on-one match, no stipulation. It always felt like, one getting a win over the other was just sticking the knife in a little deeper, just taking a little more away of the pride.
Agreed. I agree. And it's wild to say this, and I stick by it. From 2002 to 2010, I think Shawn Michaels had 3 of the greatest rivalries in wrestling history. His rivalry with Triple H, his rivalry with Chris Jericho, and then, I'm going to say The Undertaker, but realistically, he had a rivalry with Taker since 97. So, so realistically, I within like a 13-year period, he had the three of the greatest rivalries we've ever seen. It's just, well, I mean, you can also throw Brett in there because that was great. So the rules of the match are explained by Howard Finkel. The loser of the match will be the man that can't answer the 10 count. So this is a last man standing match for those of you who didn't figure that out yet. Shawn Michaels obviously is out first. It was a huge pop. I remember that. I remember literally be going, I was literally numb when I heard the music hit. That was the first time I had ever seen Shawn Michaels live. It took me till 2004 to see that. Triple H obviously is out next by himself. It's just so cool being in an arena and hearing Motorhead. And it was just loved hearing that song live. When he comes out, man, back in 2004, when Triple H came out, you just knew, not to steal a line, but business was about to pick up. And the crowd is popping huge for these entrances. Earl Hebner is the referee. So I gave this match, I think it was about 4.5 stars. To me, the match was great, but a notch below their match at the end of 2003 on Raw. I just think that match had a faster pace and had a more exciting story. But the last 10 minutes of this was absolutely fantastic. I think the draw finish causes a lot of bit of frustration to a lot of the wrestling fans. I remember, I didn't care. To me at that point, I was just happy to be there and see them wrestle. But I think it fit the story in terms of what they had next. So it's storytelling, something we don't see today. When you book a draw, it shows that both guys are evenly matched. So that's what pushes them forward to where, Michaels has a legitimate gripe to say, hey, back then, Austin and Bischoff I deserve a title shot with Triple H at WrestleMania. I know Benoit wins the Royal Rumble, but I didn't lose to Triple H. It was basically a draw at the end of 2003 at Raw, and I just had a draw with him at the Royal Rumble. So, realistically, it fits the story moving forward. What I will say about this match is, I don't know if you remember this, George, but this was one of the bloodiest matches I had ever seen.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
It's not talked about enough how much blood was in this match.
And Michaels was one of those guys, and like once he started bleeding, it was like flare. It was like a faucet.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't turning it off. You just looked at it, you're like, oh, Shawn Michaels is bleeding again. All right.
Yeah, it was obviously we know what the draw finish ended up leading up to, which was the triple threat at WrestleMania. Overall, great match. Is that something this match you give it? I was at 4.5 stars. Where do you sit on this one?
I'll give it the same. I'll give it the same at 4.5. I didn't mind the draw finish. Obviously, there's frustration. I don't mind it because, I probably didn't really like it too much when it happened, but through the grand scheme, it's like, all right, you see why that had to be. But like,
right.
Something like that happens nowadays, you are just booed out of the building.
Right.
Like nobody wants to see it. There's a lot of just instant gratification with anybody anymore. Nobody has the patience for the long-term storytelling.
I agree.
Those clowns who watch AEW will tell you that, long-term storytelling. There ain't a single storyline on that show that goes past 2 weeks. Like you guys have no idea what it is. Like what they're doing with Roman, like that's a long build. Like with Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, that's been a long-term build.
Agreed.
But back in 2004, a draw, having a draw at the end of the match was almost rare. Having a double count out, like it never happened.
Right. Agreed. I agree. All right, let's get to the reason why we are all here. The 30-man Royal Rumble match. Obviously, we know Chris Benoit kicked things off on this one. As far as WWE knows, literally it just waited till number 2. So everybody was waiting there for 2 minutes for the number 2 entrant to show up. Let's just jump ahead because we'll obviously talk about the finish. The final 4 of this match were Benoit, Angle, Jericho, and Big Show. I remember being in the arena and I thought for sure that Angle was going to be the guy who was going to win this. Let's see. Show tossed Jericho, but he skins the cat, hanging on just barely. Another attempt by Show is blocked by Jericho. Jericho comes back with a bulldog off the middle rope. Jericho hits the walls of Jericho on Big Show, or gets the walls of Jericho. I don't know why I did that in a Royal Rumble match. Jericho comes back with a bulldog. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. He taps. Doesn't matter. Jericho is trying to toss Angle. Let's see. Show takes down Kurt Angle, hits Benoit with a chokeslam. The final three are all SmackDown people, as Taz reminded us about 15 times when it got down to this. Angle's German suplex doesn't work on Show. He does get an Angle slam, however. Benoit goes after Angle, eats an Angle slam. Show is up with a choke slam. Let's see here. What else we got? Angle doesn't let up. Show is standing up on the Angle, use momentum to flip Angle over the top. It was a really good elimination. It was very unique how Angle was eliminated. I guess you're at the point now where it's Big Show and Chris Benoit, and the point here now is to, I guess make Benoit look strong, George. I mean, is that the only reason you probably put Big Show at the final two?
That's got to be the only reason, because you figure booking into this, if you got Benoit coming at number one, Big Show was what, 24 when he came in the Rumble, or number 24, not age 24.
Yeah.
So he was, I guess, fresh as Big Show could be. I mean, the dude being there for 4 minutes and immediately start sucking wind. But they had to do it to make, I guess, because even if it was Benoit versus Angle as your final two, or Benoit versus Jericho, if Benoit was to beat either of those guys, it may not have been as well received.
Like, I agree.
If Angle would have been the last guy he eliminated, he probably would have got booed. I mean, I would have cheered for him, but a lot more people were really feeling Angle at that point.
Oh, for sure. And I really thought that was Angle.
And Big Show is that guy who's, it's like always the threat to win the Royal Rumble, even though no big men, except for John Studd and Yokozuna, ever really won the Rumble. Not including Taker, but the big men who the threat to win the Rumble. It's like, yeah, but they're always eliminated. So stop saying that. And
right.
so to have him be Big Show did make him look strong, but it also helped the crowd get behind him, because nobody wanted Big Show to win. Nobody cared. Nothing
not at all.
Nothing I agree. Against Big Show, but he wins. People are just gonna be like, okay.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, I mean, let's see. The final two are Big Show and Benoit. Show is up on the apron, leaning over the top rope with his head in the middle of the ring, almost. Benoit to the top. He gets a headbutt on Show while he's leaning over. Pretty sick spot. Benoit's been in there for exactly 1 hour at this point. He charges Show. Let's see. But Show, grabs him around the throat. Benoit reverses to the crossface. Show taps again. That's all. Remind Big Show one more time that this is the Royal Rumble. That's the third time now that the Big Show is tapped out. But at this time, they get near the ropes here. Benoit fights out of a couple things and then grabs Big Show in a headlock. Benoit's on the apron while Show is in the ring. The man that is about 5'9", about 210. Keeps pulling and pulling and pulling on a man that is about 7 foot, all 500 pounds at this point, and the Big Show rolls out of the ring. And Chris Benoit wins it, and I remember being there, man. The crowd went bonkers. I think you're right, though. Once Kurt Angle was eliminated, the crowd now is preparing themselves for Benoit. And I agree with you. At that point, it's like, okay, well, they're definitely not going to have Big Show win this. So they're finally going to give a guy like Benoit his due. And literally at almost 62 minutes, Chris Benoit wins from the number one spot. Looking back at that Rumble match itself, not the pay-per-view, just the match. What were your thoughts on it?
I mean, as well as the Rumble match goes, I thought it was a pretty decent Rumble match. I mean, obviously we had a couple surprises there with, oh dear God, Ernest the Cat Miller.
Yep, Diamond Dallas Page.
DDP, yeah. I remember Ernest the Cat Miller when his number came up, and I was up in the cheap seats. And when his number came up, and like that little dude ran down, and I was there looking. I'm like, and man, by look, we're like, did someone just hop the railing and like just run down to the ring?
Yeah.
And then he stopped.
Yeah.
And it's like, then he said Ernest Cat Miller. I looked back at my buddy. I was like, fucking Ernest Miller. I was like, what the hell? And then he starts dancing. I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Oh, it's so funny.
And then was it Mick Foley taking out Test in the back
Yeah.
to set up to go after Randy Orton to keep that feud going, which obviously builds a WrestleMania.
Yep.
That was it. And Mick Foley is always known to just kind of throw in his body, as basically using his body as a weapon. And when he threw himself at Randy Orton, they both went over the top rope. I thought one of them died.
I know.
It just looked like the most violent thing I've ever seen.
It was. I watched this pay-per-view over again the other day, and I saw that, and I went, "Oh my God, you couldn't pay those guys enough to ever do something like that again."
There was so much velocity behind it for a guy of Mick Foley's size and how fast he can go.
I know.
It was so rough.
He threw everything into that, and he goes, "Look, however I land, it's gonna look good." Oh boy, it looked brutal. So my random thoughts on the match itself was I thought the match did a tremendous job of elevating Benoit to the next level, which is what it needed. I think the best Rumbles are the ones where the winner is somebody that hasn't been at that main event level before, and all they need is that push of the Rumble to get there. And I thought it told that story very well of Benoit obviously overcoming the odds to get that victory coming from the number one spot. He started the match. He carried it. I mean, it wasn't like one of those, this last one we just watched with Edge. There was a good 15, 20 minutes where I would look over to my buddies and go, I just haven't seen Edge in like 10, 15 minutes. Benoit was constantly involved with something. And so I got to give him credit there. He earned those 61 minutes. Another random thought here. They really did a nice job, and you just said it, booking Orton as a heel. He wasn't even in the previous Rumble, but by this point, they'd started to really push him. The Foley angle was really hot and would lead to a fantastic feud that went into WrestleMania and then Backlash. That Backlash match, jeez. Mick Foley and Backlash just don't go well together.
No. or maybe they go too well together.
Yeah, they go too well together. He was a story of the first half of the match with Benoit. He looked and he showed that he could hang with top guys. Later that year, it goes back to what George and I said. He became the youngest world champion in company history. The next thing with the Lesnar Goldberg thing was a big deal. We had heard rumblings of the feud starting between them, and they touched on it a bit before this match too in a backstage promo. Little did we know that 2 months later they'd have a match at Mania where they would both be gone. I did mark out though when Lesnar came in and attacked Goldberg with that F5 though, man, that was awesome.
Oh yeah.
And obviously, Big Show's elimination of Angle was fantastic. I remember thinking at the time that they'd have, the Benoit Angle showdown since Benoit didn't beat Angle in the feud they had a year earlier. It would have been nice to see that, but Benoit using all of his strength to get rid of the show, the Big Show, was a fantastic visual, although not too believable, but it's a work, everyone. He literally dragged him over the ring. But yeah, I mean, the couple facts and opinions here. The person that lasted the longest, obviously, Chris Benoit. He also, fun fact, George, had the most eliminations with 6.
Oh, did he? That's interesting.
Yeah. My best performers were, I'll leave the obvious choice out because it was obviously the Benoit show. You could tell that by watching or reading about it. I'll just add Orton and the Big Show also had very good showings in the Rumble, I thought. We know what the best elimination was. We talked about that. Overall, I give this Rumble about almost 4 stars. I thought the match did a tremendous job of elevating Benoit to that next level. I think I really thought that it was really good. This was a great Rumble match in terms of taking a mid-card guy like Benoit and pushing him to main event status. The fans wanted it at that point of the match, like we talked about. Once Angle was gone, that pop at the end of that Rumble will tell you that. I mean, I remember, and like you said, the crowd wanted Benoit, and all the way through Mania, he was just over. Obviously, it's hard to love the moment back, looking now what happened 3 years later, but, we're all adults and we can, sit here and say, it was he was fine. I'm okay. I have no problem watching Chris Benoit matches.
I can separate the performer from the man.
Absolutely.
Like
Right.
Like whatever he did in between those ropes or on screen, as far as I'm concerned, that was a completely different person than what we read about in June of 2007.
I agree. 100. That's a great way to put it. I mean, you watch matches, and when I watch a Benoit match now, I don't say to myself, man, that guy killed his family. No, I just watch it now because, and I've no issue saying it. There's nothing wrong with saying the guy was damn good in the ring.
Yeah. I do cringe at parts where I'm watching, from watching the Benoit match, and you hear the commentary, and they're like, "Oh, Benoit is like a rabid animal," and part of me is just like, "Oh, this is a little rough now."
Oh, he's a Canadian crippler.
Yeah, there was. God, I was watching an old episode of Nitro for one reason or another, and it was during the Benoit Kevin Sullivan feud. And it was, the whole thing was that,
that's tough to watch, I'm sure.
He took Nancy from Kevin. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is really rough to watch now.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I'll still watch it, but just knowing what was going to happen, it's like, God, I wish I could kind of go ahead and just warn her about what's going to happen.
I know.
But, it's rough. But going back to the Rumble, there was one thing that happened at Rumble that we didn't mention.
What's that?
We were both there. We were both there live. Remember when it was after Kane came out and he laid waste to everybody, the clock rings down, the arena goes dark, and the gong goes off. That's right off of that damn arena.
I can't believe I forgot that. I remember thinking, oh my God, is the Undertaker legit here?
I mean, it went dark and the gong went off, and I couldn't hear anything around me for the next 15 minutes.
Oh, God,
it was so loud, and then it was nothing. So it's one of those classic Taker teases, and we're like, all right. And then poor Spike Dudley.
And then Spike.
Poor Spike Dudley.
I can't believe that man's even walking right now.
Oh God. I felt almost as bad for him as I felt for Scotty 2 Hotty, I think, in the 2001 Rumble, when he came out and it was just Taker and Kane in the ring, and he was just like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Oh, so bad. But man, yeah, I can't believe I forgot about that gong. Damn, that was an incredible moment.
Because that was the return of the Dead Man. That was setting up the return of the Dead Man, because he was the American Badass for 3 years at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I miss the American Badass. I love the American Badass Undertaker.
Oh, so do I. I mean, I grew up in a family of bikers, so seeing the American Badass, I was like, oh, that's like one of my dad's friends.
Oh, that's so cool. I wish he was. then I'd rapidly become your friend even more. Overall, George, what do you rate? I guess we'll go out of a 10 here. What do you rate the Royal Rumble 2004?
As a pay-per-view as a whole, I'll give it a 7, just because some of the matches on the undercard were kind of weak.
I agree.
The tag team title match, Holly and Lesnar wasn't that great, but Michaels and Triple H and the Rumble match saved that pay-per-view from becoming garbage.
I agree.
I mean, if the wrong person won that Rumble, it would have really dragged it down.
Can you imagine if the Big Show would have won that Rumble?
Big Show's not winning any Rumbles.
It makes me laugh. Barone and I, we talk about this every time we watch an old Rumble that Big Show's in, and that MFer Michael Cole always says the same thing. By God, or my God, who is going to get the Big Show out? And then my man gets out every single year within 10 minutes.
I was like, whenever it's like, oh, who's going to throw out the Big Show? And I just want to look at him and be like, fucking anybody in the ring, Cole.
I'm with you. I give this pay-per-view a solid 7. I can't go any lower and I can't go any higher. I think that's a perfect number for this show. It was really good Rumble. It was a memorable one, regardless of what WWE wants to tell us or show us. I thought it was a really good pay-per-view, not great.
It doesn't exist for them. I'm surprised it's up on the network, actually.
I know. I wonder if Peacock will take it. We'll see.
They'll put a blue dot over Christian.
The story did you ever hear that story about Christian with the blue dot? We're gonna put a blue dot on his face. Christian. I feel so bad for that guy. But all right. So coming up on the Nerd Enthusiast Wrestling Podcast, next we're going to be doing the 2015 Rumble. That one, for everyone who maybe don't remember, featured two really big things that night. One, the triple threat match for the WWE title, which was Cena, Lesnar, and Rollins. One of the best pay-per-view main events I've ever seen. Just do yourself a favor and go watch that main event. One, John Cena is the man, and I don't care, what anybody says. He is incredible. And two, that was where we saw, oh my God, this Seth Rollins guy is gonna be the guy. And it's just all. And Brock had his working shoes on, and when Brock has his working shoes on, he's incredible. And then that was also the night that, the shoving of Roman Reigns down one's throat reached its absolute peak when he dominated the Rumble, and we saw an appearance by the Great One who was booed out of the building in Philadelphia.
It's bad when The Rock can't get you over.
That's pretty much the kiss of death. If The Rock comes out and The Rock knew it, and it's they had that famous scene where they're getting booed out of the building and The Rock's face completely changes. So we'll talk about that because Barone was there. I was not there, but he was. So we're going to cover that. And then we're getting into WrestleMania season. And, hopefully we can get George back on to cover maybe one of his favorite WrestleManias. Right now on tap, we are going to cover WrestleMania 19. We're going to cover WrestleMania 17, WrestleMania 25, and then WrestleMania 35. 35 we will cover because Barone and I were there 2 years ago, which just so happens to be the last Mania that had fans in it. And so that was a great pay-per-view as well. We will cover that. What is your favorite Manias that you can name off the top of your head, George?
Off the top of my head, 17. Yeah. 17 is my favorite Mania of all time. I don't mind WrestleMania 20, to be honest with you.
Very good pay-per-view, actually.
I do like that. Oh my gosh, there's so many for me to even think about. Most of the ones, 98 was really good too.
Oh, at 15. Oh no, I'm sorry, that was 14.
14, and we're the Boston Garden.
Yeah, Michael's the Austin era, Mike Tyson. Yeah, that was a good one too. Gosh. There's gonna be a lot that we're gonna cover. We're looking forward to getting into Mania season. If you guys want to check us out, head over to obviously youtube.com/nerdenthusiast. Head over to our Facebook page, our Instagram page. We're always doing giveaways of video games. We have the poker podcast, the gaming podcast. Having a lot of fun right now. Head over to patreon.com/nerdenthusiast. Check out one of those tiers. I know Barone and I are going to be dropping some extra material on there very soon. I think coming up, we're going to be discussing the good old Katie Vick segment that aired on Raw back in, I think it was like 2002. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Because he was still masked Kane at that point.
Right. So we're going to get into the Katie Vick. We're going to touch on that was a bad thing there. I said Katie Vick, and then we're gonna touch on, and then we're gonna, and then we're gonna talk, and then we're gonna, the Patreon material. We're gonna talk about the steroids, the steroid trial. Why we think steroids should still be allowed in pro wrestling, and then we will also talk about the Benoit, what happened with Chris Benoit in 2007. So those are Patreon only segments, and that we're gonna do exclusively for them. Now, before we head out of here, George, tell everybody what you're doing because you are also quite active in the podcast world. And so kind of, plug the crap out of yourself, man. Whatever you're doing, let us know.
Well, we got the two podcasts going. We got Station 007, which is a James Bond-centric podcast, which we're not doing an episode for this week because we're every other week with that one. But we just recently put up, it was a review for the first Mission Impossible movie, which we decided to do for Station 007 because we look at the Mission Impossible movies like if James Bond was in America. Like we see Ethan Hunt as an American James Bond. And with like the IMF basically being like MI6 in England. So that's why we did a review for that. But this week on Multiverse Movie Podcast, well, actually this month I should say, since we're doing well, these last 3 weeks we've been doing movies that we love to hate, but they're just bad movies, but we either like them or they're just hard to watch. We just recently put up one for Armageddon,
Yep.
which unfortunately that episode got lost in the mix of the Gina Carano situation.
Which you guys cover very well.
Which we covered, and then immediately we're like, all right, we're gonna do this, and then we're not gonna talk about it again. And then immediately and we do Armageddon, Dean jumps right into it. He didn't even do the intro like he always does. Right. It was to the end where I was like, hey, you never did the intro. But the new episode coming out on Sunday is going to be on the 1994 classic Street Fighter.
Yes.
So for those who are alive in the 90s and remember that movie, or if you weren't and you just like, hey, I enjoy bad movies made off of good video games, then this movie is for you.
Oh man, yeah, you guys have guys. Look, I say this all the time. I plug all your stuff all the time. You guys do a great job. You guys give a damn about the content that you put out there. You don't tell people or try to say that you guys are none of us come on here and say, hey, we're Joe Rogan of podcasting and all that stuff. We do this as an outlet for the things that we love, and we try to do the best that we can. But realistically, if you don't like it, don't listen. If you like it, give us a listen. So, fun fact about Armageddon. So I saw Armageddon in Cinnaminson, New Jersey, when they had the movie theater that was like $1.50 a movie.
Oh my God, yes.
So I saw that movie in there, and there was a point, and even in 90, what was that? 96 was Armageddon, or 97? 98, right? 98. So I was 12 because I was 86. So I was 12, and I was a mark, and I still am. I love Bruce Willis. So at the time, Bruce Willis was my favorite actor. So I'm in the movie theater, and like with about a half hour, 35 minutes left in the movie, I knew Bruce Willis, spoiler guys, I knew Bruce Willis was going to die. I got up and I left the movie theater, and I waited outside for the movie to end for when my grandmom came out to take me home. So to this day, George, I'm not kidding you, to this day, I still have not seen the last 35 minutes of Armageddon.
All right. Well, here, I'm going to break it down for you. Bruce Willis dies at the end, but they save Earth.
Well, I'd rather Bruce Willis survive. It's a movie.
And then Earth dies, yeah.
It's funny.
Although some people would say that he did survive the blast. It just shot him into the future. And then we got The Fifth Element.
Oh, God, what a beautiful movie The Fifth Element was.
That's a great movie.
Oh, I can't wait for you guys to cover that. It's one of my favorite movies ever, actually. Love The Fifth Element. All right, George, man, thank you so much for joining me. This is going to go up hopefully within the next few days. You guys will see it on the YouTube channel, and you guys will hear it anywhere you listen to your podcast, the Nerd Enthusiast Wrestling Podcast. But definitely check out everything else. Literally, we just shared our profile on Facebook, and Nerd Enthusiast already jumped like way over, an additional like 200 likes, and our subscribers on YouTube are just going up, 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 and up, and it's just phenomenal content pumping out there. So looking forward to the Royal Rumble 2004 hitting that cycle as well. George, you're the man, dude. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. I'm Chris C. Francesco. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and weekend, and I'll catch you all down the road. Have a good one and stay safe. Bye-bye.